Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wrestling Territories Podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about some forgotten tag teams. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the podcast. Like I said, tonight we're going to talk about tag teams that are kind of forgotten or not really talked about much anymore. And the team we're going to start out with is the Killer Bees and how unique they were. And they were good. They were a mid card act, but they were really cool. Okay, so the Killer Bees, as you can see, their outfits are pretty cool. Black and yellow, as bees would be. And this tag team was thrown together at the suggestion of Hulk Hogan. They had the same similar style and body type and everything. They felt like they would work good together, and actually they really did. And the thing was, they were a mid card tag team. Occasionally they would win. Quite a few times they get jobbed out, and so it was just a flip flop back and forth. They never won any tag team championships in the WWF, and I think a lot of that is kind of disappointing in a way because if the WWF had a mid card championship, I think it would have been good for the for tag teams like the Killer Beast to have had a mid card championship. So like the NWA had the World Tag Titles and the US Tag Titles. If the WWF had maybe like I don't know. Intercontinental Tag Team Champions or something like that, the Killer Bees would have been a team that could have held those tag team titles. They wasn't to a point to where they could be World Tag Team Champions, but they definitely could have been a good mid card tag team championship title holders. And their unique style, they were over with the fans. The fans really liked them and everything that they did. So I don't see why they couldn't been like a mid card tag team championships. And another thing with them, they had masks that they wore, and they'd only wear them occasionally, and it'd be to kind of help themselves win matches. So they had matching masks to go along with their outfits, and they would bring them to the ring. They would keep them to the side, and then when the referee wasn't looking, they would switch out by having masks on and they would win the match doing that. So it was a cool little gimmick they had. And like I said, they were over with the fans. People liked them. They were just a fun, cool little tag team. And I hope they're never forgotten by anybody. But the Killer Bees definitely, if in my opinion, if they were, let's say the Killer Bees had been in the NWA. Let's say they'd been in, let's say, world class or mid South, places like that. They'd been over and probably could have been in the NWA, I think they could have been U.S. Tag Team Champions. I mean, could you imagine the Killer Bees and the Midnight Express in a feud? That'd have been a pretty good feud by far. And then in the UWF, they could have been UWF Tag Team Champions. World Classic could have been tag team champions there as well. So a lot of organizations didn't have secondary titles. World Class, the best of my knowledge that I remember correctly, they had the world tag titles and the six-man tag title. So maybe the Killer Bees was somebody else, a six-man tag team champions. But these two will always go down in history as a cool tag team. And in my opinion, I think that they should have probably been maybe in the Hall of Fame. What do you think? Okay, so let's move on to another tag team known as the Powers of Pain. It was the Warlord and the Barbarian. They originally got their start as a tag team in the NWA, then moved over to the WWF, and was able to keep their names, the Powers of Pain. They had the manager Paul Jones in the NWA, and then had manager Mr. Fuji in the WWF. They actually were heels in the NWA, feuding against the Road Warriors. And if you remember the bench press challenge where Animal got his eye injured and everything, that's a pretty big storyline that they had. They were World Six Man Tag Team Champions with Ivan Koloff, which there's a good veteran right there to be a tag team partner with. And they feuded with Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors. And they decided to leave the NWA they when Crockett and them wanted to put them in scaffold matches against Road Warriors. They were not really willing to do that. So they decided to go to the WWF where they would come in as faces and go against the Demolition. And later on, it's a Survivor Series. They turn heel and help Mr. Fuji out, and he has his new tag team. And Demolition are face all of a sudden. Demolition was a real popular tag team, but the Powers of Pain can't really be forgotten. The Powers of Pain was a unique team. Uh, Warlord was still kind of green when he's getting going real good. He was actually managed by Baby Doll for a bit as a face to kind of help combat Big Bubba Rogers in her feud against the Midnight Express. But the Warlord goes away to Central States for a while, and I think Florida too, and does a little more retooling in his wrestling skills. And when he comes back, they put him with the Barbarian. Now at that time, he does not have face paint. It's not to the WWF that he gets face paint. And the Barbarian's a big veteran. I mean, he's been around a while and he's one of the best ever. As a matter of fact, I got to meet him one time. The Barbarian is really cool. And what a tag team to have. And but they never got to the point of being one of the best tag teams ever as far as tag team champions went. They were World Six Man Tag Team Champions, as I mentioned in the NWA. They didn't go no further than that in the WWF. And their feud with Demolition didn't last extremely long. And it wasn't too long after that the Road Warriors came in. So they definitely want to do Demolition and Road Warriors, right? But Warlord and Barbarian get broke up. Bobby Heenan takes over the contract of the Barbarian, and Slick, I believe, takes over the Warlord. So, but this tag team, I hope, is never forgotten. They're a good tag team, and definitely, in my opinion, I mean, being six-man tag team champions and being a good tag team that they were, should be in the Hall of Fame. What do you think? All right, so we're going to leave off with another tag team that's kind of forgotten. As you can see on the screen here, Crusher Khrushchev and Ivan Koloff. Now, you go back and you remember where it's around 84 when Nikita Koloff comes in as Nikita Koloff, Don Cornoodle, and Ivan Koloff. Those three are together and they are the World Tag Team Champions. And they get defeated by Manny Fernandez and Dusty Rose. And at that point, Ivan and Nikita kick Don Cornoodle out. But it's not too long after that that Crusher Khrushchev comes in and becomes he's a Russian sympathizer. So he's not from Russia. He's an American, but he's a sympathizer and he sympathizes with Ivan Nikita. He also did the same thing in Mid South where he was with Nikolai Volkov. And there is a crossover, I guess you want to call it that, in Mid South where Ivan and Nikita Koloff do go to Mid South. And so it's really unique that Crusher Khrushchev has a pretty successful run in Mid South with Nikolai Volkov and a good successful run with Ivan and Nikita Koloff. And then an even bigger successful run was Demolition as Smash with his tag team partner Axe. But Ivan Koloff speaks for itself. I mean, Ivan Koloff is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Former WWF World Champion. And then he comes to the Mid Atlantic territory where he's a Mid Atlantic champion for a while. And then he's a World Tag Team Champion, a six-man tag team champion. And then as you can see in the picture here with Crusher Khrushchev, he's with U.S. Tag Team Champion. And then he becomes U.S. Tag Team Champion again with Dick Murdoch and Vladimir I forget his last name. Anyways, Vladimir. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not going to talk about those. That was not a good tag team part. The tag team of Crusher Khrushchev and Ivan Koloff was really good. When Nikita turned face and went with Dusty Rhodes after Magnum TA's horrible wreck, Crusher Khrushchev comes in more of the bigger partner for Ivan at that point. And like I say, they become the very first U.S. Tag Team Champions, which is real big. Those titles are beautiful. Matter of fact, I have a replica behind me here. And that's one of my favorite tag team titles. So they're the U.S. Tag Team Champions until Crusher decides to leave around December of 87 when they dropped the titles of Ron Garvin and Barry Windham. I've talked about that before in other podcasts. But Ivan Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev, in my opinion, are kind of a tag team that's kind of forgotten. They did quite a bit of tag teaming even before becoming U.S. Tag Team Champions. As World Tag Team Champions, they lost the titles to the Rock and Roll Express and then gained them back, but it was actually Nikita and Ivan who defended them against the Rock and Roll Express at Starrcade 85 and lost them back to the Rock and Roll Express. But in the time frame that Nikita was working as the U.S. champion and going in as being the U.S. champion against Magnum TA, Ivan and Crusher did a lot of tag teaming. And so this is a tag team that really cannot be forgotten. I can't, I don't know. Maybe they should be in the Hall of Fame too. I mean, they've had so much success as World Tag Team Champions, U.S. Tag Champions, six-man tag champions. I don't see why those two couldn't be a tag team in the Hall of Fame along with Nikita Koloff. I think that'd be a heck of a thing for the WWF to do. And like I say, please don't forget Crusher and Ivan That was a heck of a tag team. Okay, I hope y'all enjoy the podcast tonight. Just a real quick little forgotten tag teams that people don't think about anymore. Three good tag teams. You know, you're talking about the Killer Bees and Ivan Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev and the Powers of Pain. You know, connections with the NWA, WWF, AWA for the Killer Bees as well, because Jim Bronzell was a tag team champion with Greg Gagne there. But three tag teams that people don't really talk about too much anymore. And I've got a list of tag teams we're going to talk about over the next several weeks. And some deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, some don't, but some are just need to be remembered, right? And until next time, God bless. I'll see you soon.